The first item on the first bill on the agenda is House File 3276, dealing with ranked choice voting. I will move that House File 3276 be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. Just so members are aware, we did have a full hearing. I think we spent an hour and a half on a ranked choice voting bill last year, but hopefully we don't need to rehash things that we discussed last year, but we are giving this one a hearing as well. So, and then just so members are aware also, there is an A4 amendment in your packet. It did not meet deadline, so we are not going to be adopting it, but it's likely that it will go on largely in this form in the State Government Finance Committee. So I just wanted to make sure that members were aware of it, and we will be discussing it as well. So that's the status of that.
Excuse me, so we will be discussing the A4, is that what you said?
Yes, I mean, to the extent anyone has questions about it or anything, I think it's appropriate to discuss it here.
I think that's appropriate, Mr. Chair, since it sounds like it's going to be added to the bill. And this is the Elections Committee and the committee most directly affected by this bill. You know, in the future, if there's a deadline problem, we could consult and work our way around that if necessary.
Okay.
I'd be happy to cooperate.
Sure, I apologize for not bringing this to your attention. So I have moved House File 3276 to be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. Representative Frazier, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Chair, Vice Chair, and Lee Torkelson. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak to this bill. It is different from last year. Last year was a lot broader. We've heard from folks, we've connected with folks, we've engaged stakeholders, and we come back with a bill that would only provide for a local option if jurisdictions wanted it. Minnesota is known for being a leader in civic engagement and democracy, but we believe that our communities can do even better. We have the opportunity to make our local elected leaders more reflective and inclusive of communities they serve and address some of the toxicity and divisiveness harming our democracy. That's why we need this bill and the outcome it can offer. Ranked choice voting empowers voters to rank candidates in order of preference and ensures winners with a majority or the highest support possible in a single, decisive, and cost-effective election. This is especially important for communities of color who historically have been marginalized and underrepresented in our political system. In traditional elections, candidates often cater to a narrow base of supporters to secure plurality of votes, leaving communities of color feeling ignored and disempowered. With ranked choice voting, candidates have to appeal to a wider range of voters, including those from communities of color, to win. It also incentivizes candidates to build broad coalitions of voter support that span differences in background and political ideology. Ranked choice voting also allows for more diverse candidates to run for office without splitting the vote among them and therefore have a chance at winning. This opens up the field to a wider range of candidates to represent a broader set of values and interests of communities of color. Ranked choice voting has been shown to increase opportunities for women in communities of color, which is demonstrated by the historic all-female and diverse city councils in St. Paul and Minnetonka following elections of last November. Ranked choice voting is proven to be easy to use and foster higher voter turnout. In Minnesota cities that have adopted ranked choice voting, Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Bloomington, and Minnetonka, the overwhelming majority of voters have consistently said ranked choice voting is simple and voter turnout has increased since adopting ranked choice voting. Communities of color in particular have historically had lower voter turnout rates, so any method that can increase turnout and engagement is a positive step towards greater inclusivity. In ranked choice elections, candidates must appeal to their opponents' supporters for second and third choice votes. And they do that by running positive campaigns that focus on policy solutions rather than personal attacks. That's exactly the antidote we need to heal our political divisions and promote more civil, representative, and inclusive elections. This bill is necessary because under current law, only charter cities with odd year elections less than 1%, which are less than 1% of Minnesota local jurisdictions, have the ability to adopt ranked choice voting today without this legislation. The Local Voices, Local Choices Act gives power to all cities, counties, and school districts to decide if ranked choice voting is best for their communities. The bill promotes local control and has no mandates, allows jurisdictions to adopt ranked choice voting by ordinance, resolutions, referendum, or amending their charter if they want to, allows for the creation of standards for implementing ranked choice voting in both single and multi-seat nonpartisan elections, It gives the Secretary of State rulemaking authority to establish additional standards necessary for jurisdictions to implement ranked choice voting in even years and across multiple jurisdictions. It provides for state certification of ranked choice voting equipment and tabulation systems, allowing for faster election results. This bill is about local control, empowering Minnesota communities to make decisions about how best to run their local elections. My office has been working with the Secretary of State's office to ensure the technical language of the bill works, and I'm grateful for their efforts and support. Chair, if I can't speak to the A4 amendment, I know I'm not going to move it, but
Sure.
So the A4 amendment reflects that work. I do apologize for the timeliness of it, but that amendment is important and crucial because it lines us up with the Senate version of this bill, as well as provides language that is acceptable by the Association of Minnesota Counties and the League of Minnesota Cities. With that, Chair, I will yield to testimony.
Thank you, Representative Frazier. The first testifier on the list is Secretary of State Steve Simon. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Secretary. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. I want to thank you for your time and attention. I want to thank Representative Frazier for his leadership on this. This is really about unshackling cities. Right now, as you heard Representative Frazier say, we have two classes of cities. We have statutory cities and we have charter cities. But strangely, right now, only charter cities are even allowed to experiment with ranked choice voters. No other cities are allowed to even experiment with ranked choice voting. And you don't have to like ranked choice voting. You don't have to buy into the concept at all, or maybe you're not sold yet, to understand that other cities should have the opportunity to experiment with it. If they don't like it, they can ditch it. If they like it, they can keep it. But it really is that simple. Right now, if a statutory city wants to experiment with ranked choice voting, that city, that jurisdiction would have to come to you, would have to come to the legislature with a one-off bill and, in essence, plead their case and plead for an exception to the law. It doesn't make sense. I used to carry a version of this bill myself when I was among you in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I think for a long time it has made a lot of sense. Give cities the option, give them the choice, give them the freedom, give them the flexibility to choose the election system that works for them, only for nonpartisan elections, only for municipal elections, but it doesn't make sense any longer to have communities in two separate categories and two separate classes. So this would give more freedom, more flexibility to all jurisdictions across Minnesota to adopt ranked choice voting if they wish. That's the bill, and that's the reason, the best reason, I believe, to support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We have, I think, 5 people who have signed up to testify on this bill. We've asked them to keep their remarks to 2 minutes. So if it gets to be past 2 minutes, you may hear me just ask them to wrap things up. So the first testifier on the list is Jen Westmoreland. Welcome, Board Member Westmoreland, and after Jen Westmoreland will be Christina Scipione. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Jen Westmoreland. I've served as a member of the Hopkins School Board for the past 7 years. In 2020, I introduced a resolution supporting the local option for jurisdictions to choose ranked choice voting, such as cities and school boards. Our school board unanimously passed this resolution in 2020. Since then, I've witnessed firsthand the benefits of ranked choice voting in the city of Minnetonka, which is part of the Hopkins School District and a community that I've called home for many years. These benefits included more diverse candidate pools, higher voter turnout, and less costly election cycles. When there was an effort to repeal ranked choice voting last November, Minnetonka voters resoundingly said yes to ranked choice voting a second time at the polls. Ranked choice voting would also be a great benefit to county races, eliminating costly and low turnout primaries. I'm currently a candidate in the Hennepin County Commissioner District 6 special election, where the primary and general election are only 2 weeks apart. Ranked choice voting would make voting in this election more accessible for our community and less costly for the county. As I'm sure you know, ranked choice voting is part of the Hennepin County government's legislative agenda for this year. For these reasons and more, I ask you to support this bill, and I thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is Christina Scipione, and after Christina Scipione will be Anita Smithson. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Christina Scipione. I am the city clerk in Bloomington, and I thank you for your time today. I have been administering elections since 2008 and was responsible for implementing ranked choice voting once it was approved by Bloomington voters in 2020. I am speaking in support of two provisions in this bill. First, I am in support of statewide standards for ranked choice voting. Consistency is important in elections. Ranked choice voting voters in Golden Valley should have the same experience as voters in Redwood Falls and Bloomington. Statewide standards make it easier for all to understand how RCV elections are administered, which increases transparency and trust in the electoral system. Statewide standards also lower the barrier to entry for communities that want to implement RCV but feel overwhelmed by the daunting task of creating an electoral system from scratch. The second provision I am in support of is allowing the use of federally tested RCV tabulation software. Bloomington has used RCV in 2 local elections. We've used both tabulation methods currently available, the spreadsheet method and the hand count method. Both methods are manual processes which delay results reporting. Delayed results reporting provides room for misinformation to spread and can diminish trust in the electoral process. Software does exist that automates the RCV tabulation process, but current law does not provide for its use. Allowing the use of RCV tabulation software will minimize the time needed to hold tabulation rounds, which will provide the quick results reporting that our voters have come to expect. Thank you for your time today. As an election administrator, I appreciate your consideration of those provisions.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is Anita Smithson, and after Anita Smithson will be Rod Adams. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Chair and members. My name is Anita Smithson. I'm a political strategist and campaign manager in Bloomington, and I'm here today because I have supported and managed several local campaigns, and I want to share the positive outcomes in our Bloomington community with ranked choice voting elections. Voting is a fundamental right, and it should be easy. Ranked choice voting is easy. Even the candidates in Bloomington who were vocally opposed to ranked choice voting clearly articulated which races they wanted their supporters to rank just one candidate and which races they wanted their supporters to rank multiple candidates. Reviewing election results makes it apparent that voters from all demographics across the city were able to find candidates to rank. Fairly clear coalitions of voters emerged in patterns that aligned with the conversations we were having and hearing from our opponents on the campaign trail. After thousands of conversations with voters, it was clear that the overwhelming majority understood how to cast their ranked choice voting ballot. I also appreciate that ranked choice voting incentivizes candidates talking to more voters. Several of the campaigns I have worked on in Bloomington had multiple candidates for each seat. In 2021, we knew for one of our races that the vote would be split 4 ways, and that while voters and candidates may not agree on every issue, we knew there was room, especially in our nonpartisan local elections, for finding common ground and shared values. It is because we reached beyond the most dedicated base of supporters, we heard from more voters, even ones who disagreed with our campaign on some issues, and found areas of commonality that we would not have found if we were just sticking to our base. With RCV, we had an incentive to talk to more voters because it was the right thing to do, but also because it was a key winning strategy. RCV elections are won by the people with the broadest community support, and local voters know the issues impacting them best. We all benefit when more voices are heard in the electoral process, and ranked choice voting is a valuable election reform to support more community voices. Please support this local control bill to give other communities the same opportunity we have in Bloomington to use RCV to improve their local democracy.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is Rod Adams, and after Rod Adams will be Mary Hartnett. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rod Adams. I'm the founder and executive director of the New Justice Project Minnesota, and I'm here to speak in support of HF 3276. So our electoral system was designed to shut people out. And it was only with time, hard work, that more and more people gain access to the ballot and the voice who represents them. And there is no denying that there's been progress, but just achieving access to the ballot isn't enough. Too often, black communities and communities of color are asked to choose from candidates that don't represent us or our interests. Ranked choice voting helps communities who have been traditionally marginalized by allowing more people who look like us to run, which in turn gives our communities more choices and chances for direct representation. The positive impact of ranked choice voting on representation in elections has been demonstrated over and over again. Before RCV, Minneapolis and St. Paul had nearly all white councils, city councils. Since RCV, they've had the most diverse councils in their histories. This is because RCV gets rid of the unrepresentative low turnout primaries, which has been a huge structural barrier for candidates of color. Under RCV, a multiracial electorate turns up in a single higher turnout general election, giving diverse candidates a much greater shot at winning. And rather than split the votes among candidates of color, RCV allows voters of color to pool their votes and increase the opportunity for their candidates to win. In all the cities that use RCV, we've seen a lot of firsts. The first Somali, the first Hmong, the first trans, the first Latino, first all-female city councils right here in St. Paul, in Minnetonka, and more. In 2023 alone, more than half of winners were people of color, and more than 90% of them were women. As someone who's worked on multiple campaigns and elections over the years, I see these huge strides, building representation and political power as the way to achieve a truly multiracial democracy. Let's give more communities the power to shape how they choose their representatives and vote yes on local voices and local choices. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next testifier is Mary Hartnett. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Chair Freiberg, members of the committee, my name is Mary Hartnett, and I'm the Executive Director of Clean Elections Minnesota, a nonpartisan nonprofit that advocates and educates for a strong democracy in Minnesota. We are here to support House File 3276, the Ranked Choice Voting Local Options Bill. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today, and thanks to Representative Fraser for authoring the bill. Only 15% of our Minnesota cities are presently authorized to adopt RCV for their local elections. That means 85% are prohibited from conducting their elections the way that they think best. Cities and counties are asking for this change. Over 14 cities and counties have passed resolutions supporting RCV for local elections in Minnesota. We need to listen to them. Local control just makes sense. RCV offers a way to bridge divides. 3 years ago, I ran a city council campaign, a very scrappy ward, that had 7 great multiracial candidates running for the same seat. They ranged from 23 years old to 72 years old. The candidate forums were full. To court voters, each candidate had to show what they had in common with other candidates to become voters' second and third choices on their ballot. What could have been divisive and combative became a healthy competition. It promoted more direct outreach to diverse voters and a more thorough vetting of issues that were important to our community. At present, only 5 Minnesota cities have the benefit of RCV. Let's strengthen our democracy. Let the people decide. Please vote to adopt House File 3276. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Do any members of the public wish to testify on this bill? Okay, if you could come forward. And please keep your testimony to 2 minutes or less. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Michael Holt. I live in St. Paul. We've been using ranked choice voting for some time. Some years ago, there was a election for mayor. The seat was open. There were 10 candidates, and I looked through all their materials, their biographies, their position papers, and I decided that there were 4 of them that were reasonably aligned with my values and I thought had a reasonable chance of being a successful mayor. I voted for all 4 of them. I had to rank my vote. Melvin Carter won that election, and he had not been my first choice, but I had voted for him. So consider the effect after the election. Everyone else has been talking about the election itself. The election has happened, and I hear the news that Melvin Carter got elected. My immediate response was, hey, Melvin, he'll be good. I voted for him. Had I only been allowed to vote for one candidate, I could have had a very different reaction to the news of Melvin Carter's election. the ranked choice voting made me a more engaged voter. I feel a connection with the government more than if we had not had ranked choice voting. We live in a time where people feel alienated from their government, and this is a way to address that. It increases citizen engagement and buy-in, and I think that is the single best reason to have ranked choice voting. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I only saw the one hand, so I will turn now to amendments. Representative Torkelson, did you want to offer either the A6 or A7 amendments? We could do some member discussion if you prefer for a bit, too.
I'll offer the A6.
Okay, Representative Torkelson has offered the A6 amendment. Representative Torkelson, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would require jurisdictions must adopt ranked choice voting no later than 180 days before the first day of filing affidavits.
Oh, you probably want to put your microphone a little closer.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment would require jurisdictions must adopt ranked choice voting no later than 180 days before the first day of filing affidavits for candidacy to have the time they need to succeed in preparing for the election.
Thank you for the amendment. Lead Torkelson. Representative Frazier, did you have any comments to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Lee Torkelson. We did address this in the amendment, and this is in close work with the Office of Secretary of State. We do provide for 20 weeks before the state, before the primary, for that declaration piece. So I will ask for a no vote on this amendment, but only because we've been working with the Secretary of State and they've been working closely with local election officials to kind of pin down what's needed to make sure that this can be successful there. So at this time, I'd ask for a no vote, but I am willing to continue to have conversation as we move forward.
Lead Torkelson?
Mr. Chair, I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
If we had been considering the amendment, the A4, this would not have been necessary.
Okay, sure. The amendment has been withdrawn. Thank you, Lead Torkelson. Were you interested in the A7 amendment as well? Oh, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to move the A7 amendment because one of the main criticisms I've heard and seen across the nation on ranked choice is that there are times of where you get to the third or fourth, and the total number of votes decreases sufficiently to where the majority of the remaining votes are not a majority of the votes cast. And frankly, for election confidence and integrity, I'd like to maintain that in order to win, you have a majority of the votes cast initially in the election, not the majority of a portion of the votes cast, because other ones have been pushed to the side.
Thank you. Representative Quam has moved the A7 amendment. Representative Frazier to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Kwan, for offering the amendment. I will also ask for, at this time, to not accept this amendment. Again, working closely with the Office of Secretary of State, we have worked out the pieces that are necessary for this to be successful at the local level. And by design, ranked choice voting is designed that the majority of the votes are the votes that will be cast for individuals as they rank them. And even though you have the process of going through the ranking, it still would be the majority of the votes that would go to those individuals.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, there have been ranked choice vote elections where the winner received less than 50% of the total votes cast in that election, because you get to the second and third. Plus, this would take care of, in your opening statement, you said ranked choice voting is to allow minority, participation. And then you bragged about two occasions of where one defined group made up the entire pool of winners. To me, diversity is having people from multiple groups elected. So I wouldn't be bragging about one defined group being all the members that won. And to ensure that we maintain the integrity, we actually want the winner to be the person that receives the majority of the votes cast, not the majority of the remaining votes after you've discarded other votes. So I'm hoping that we will be able to support actual democracy and fair elections.
Any further discussion to the A7 amendment? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The motion does not prevail. So to the bill. Member discussion. Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and excuse me. Thank you, Representative Frazier, for bringing this bill forward. And I also want to thank the several members of my who serve and live in my community who are here with us today. I do bring sort of a unique perspective to this proposal. I am one of only 2 members of the legislature who's actually, I'm aware of, who has actually run in a ranked choice voting election. And I think there are really a lot of reasons that local governments should want to consider ranked choice voting, particularly given that local elections tend to have vastly lower turnout, and local elections either tend to be nonpartisan, where the coalitions are much more fluid, or they tend to be in localities that are so heavily partisan that they are in effect nonpartisan. And there are, I think, really just a lot of good reasons for local elections to be able to consider this. But even more so than that, the more unique perspective that I bring to this is that I am pretty sure I am the only member of the legislature who has actually had to implement ranked choice voting on the local level. I was on the Bloomington City Council when we implemented it. And I would just say to anyone, sort of to echo what the Secretary of State said, regardless of what you think about the policy of ranked choice voting, the fact that local governments will be considering it should make you want to support this bill. That this will give locals the ability to consider guidelines and guardrails and all of the things that are involved with implementing ranked choice voting will, I think, make it a much more transparent process, a much more accessible process for local officials and for residents. We did, I think, as good a job as we could be expected to do in Bloomington when we had to implement it, but it still kind of felt like the Wild West to me. And so I think having all of this in place, it just makes good government at the local level. And I think that's something that we should all support. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any members on the list to speak on the bill. Lead Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the author.
Sure.
There is a provision in this bill for recounts. Is there a history of recounts in ranked choice voting elections in Minnesota?
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not particularly aware of a history of recounts with the ranked choice voting process, but if there's anyone here from Secretary of State's office that, let me see. Okay. Yeah. So you may get the same answer.
Welcome to the committee. As you come down, please state your name for the record and proceed with your response to the question.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg and Lead Torkelson. Nicole Freeman, Office of the Secretary of State. I am not aware of, but I'm happy to ask whether it's internally in our office or talk with the jurisdictions that have ranked choice voting to get you more information on that. I will say that in the A4 amendment, we felt like it was important to clarify that OSS should create rules, particularly for recounts related that are occurring in a ranked choice voting election. As we looked through rules as they related to and tried to fit it into a ranked choice voting election, we realized that we think we would need to make some clarifications as to how that process would happen. So that's why we made that modification in the A4.
Lead Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can you tell me about the process that you have implemented in the A4?
Nicole Freeman.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg and Lead Torkelson. So in the A4, what we have modified is to request that OSS conduct rulemaking for the purposes of the Secretary of State must adopt rules governing recounts conducted under this section. So we don't have a set, standard yet of what we would be prescribing, but that would be in our rulemaking process. So we would, have the public notice period and then be, working closely with our local election officials to create the process that makes sense for that.
Lead Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We know tabulating ranked choice voting results can be complex and challenging, and I would guess recount would be every bit as complex and challenging, and results would be slow in coming. Another question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Lead Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author, in Minneapolis, we know that the ranked choice voting has been going on for a while. Their first, as I recall, their first attempt at this, they had a multitude of candidates. I don't remember the exact number. And then as they proceeded to the next election, they ended up raising filing fees significantly. Can you tell us a little bit about filing fees and how they impact a candidate's opportunity to be on the ballot?
Sure. Representative Frazier, I'm not sure it's
Yeah, I don't-
directly relevant to the bill, but
I don't know if Lee Torkelson, thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, thank you for the recognition. I don't know if I can tell you, I would imagine that if there's an exorbitant fee, it could be a barrier to the ballot, but I have not did a query and scanned all jurisdictions to see what those filing fees are, or read any studies or surveys that say that in the state of Minnesota, we have filing fees that are being a particular barrier for candidates.
Lead Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Frazier, from my perspective, it seems like the entire reason for raising those filing fees was to limit the number of candidates on the ballot, because I don't know why, but that seems apparent to me that was the reasoning behind it. So you've got kind of this double-edged sword in a way. So in this bill, who sets the filing fees for these elections?
Representative Frazier.
I believe we still leave that up to the local jurisdictions, but Nicole, I will.
Nicole Freeman, any clarification?
Thank you, Chair Freiberg and Lee Torkelson. Yes, that still would be up to the individual municipality.
Lead Torkelson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's no limit on how high those filing fees could go if local jurisdiction decided to restrict the number of candidates by raising the filing fees?
Representative Frazier, I don't know if we have that information here. Representative Torkelson, if you were interested in introducing a bill to cap the amount of the filing fee, that sounds like a GOP bill I might be inclined to hear.
That's shocking in itself. No further questions, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to tell the author that I appreciate statewide standards because of the confusion that we've seen in some communities with this. I think that helps, plus it also helps in decreasing the amount of time to prep and a little bit more confidence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounded more like a comment. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Frazier. And this is just a quick comment because I know how hard you've worked on this bill, and I think that letting local governments choose the system that works for them is the right choice, and I really appreciate it. And I know you've spent lots of time. We had a lot of time here last year, and so want to appreciate all the work you've done in really listening to local governments, listening to the Secretary of State and members. So just thanks again. That's how policymaking should work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Bliss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, is there evidence that ranked choice voting leads to a higher incidence of ballot spoilage? And what is your criteria for ballot spoilage?
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not aware of that evidence that it leads to a higher level of ballot spoilage, but I will defer to Secretary of State's office if there's anything to add.
Nicole Freeman.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg and Representative. I'm not aware of a higher occurrence of spoilage necessarily at the polling, location as somebody is voting. I will say that there is a process then of, so I'm not sure if you're talking about on Election Day and that, as people are voting on Election Day. Yes, I'm not aware of that. And I'm trying to think if that is on a summary statement somewhere. I will look and see if that is something that is reported out of how many ballots were spoiled.
Thank you.
Representative Bliss? Okay. Seeing no additional member discussion, Representative Frazier, any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. Again, members, thank you for the discussion. Again, I am open. If you have any questions, please reach out, and I will be responsive as the bill moves along.
Okay, thank you, Representative Frazier. With that, I will renew the motion that House File 3276 be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, motion prevails.